we talk about interviewing. And in that session, I talk a lot about storytelling and how you should keep it short and simple, right? You want to capture and keep their attention. You want to have organization to your story, right? All that good stuff. You want to make them believe you. You want to get them to care. You ultimately want to get them to act and all that good stuff. That formula is phenomenal for 80 to 90% of interview questions, especially the ones that ask you about a specific situation. Meaning I say, hey, Frank, tell me about this project here. What was going on? Okay, works great. But when you get one of these where it is off the page, so to speak, and they throw you into the big blue ocean and you now have to choose a story, you are at great risk of choosing a story that they will not like. Okay, chances are you will choose a story they will not like. You have a greater chance of doing that. I'm not trying to scare you here. I'm going to give you the fix, but I want you to know this is a different kind of question. And what I think is always important when you get one of these, and they're obvious to know, because I was asked to choose something that is going to tell them something about my behavior, not my accomplishments. Okay, I need you to write that down. When I get a question about something where I'm given the opportunity to choose, where my response is going to tell them about my behavior as opposed to my accomplishment, I need to use a different formula. The different formula you need to use is you need to share with them your philosophy. Then I want you to share with them the process, and then I want you to share with them the outcome. Now, I haven't given this an acronym yet. PPO is kind of like, the healthcare thing. Anybody who wants to give me an acronym and help me brand this thing, I'll give you a free coaching session or something. There's the STAR technique that's out there. Situation, task, action, result, and people tout it and they say this is the best way to answer behavioral interviewing questions. And I think it's the absolute worst way to answer a behavioral interviewing question. And I'll tell you why. Because if I go right into the situation, I tell them what the task was, I tell them what my action was, and I tell them what the outcome was, and they don't like the story that I chose, I lost the question. Okay? I lost it. I gave myself no insurance that they are going to still love me despite the fact that they didn't like the story I chose. So you can eliminate that by explaining your philosophy on something, because if your philosophy is in alignment with their philosophy, it doesn't matter what story you choose. Okay, let's be really specific so you know how to answer this question, but I wanted you to know what was coming and why I want you to do it this way, okay? All right. So number one, philosophy. So that's great. That's a great question, about a time that I disagreed with somebody. I think I've got a great story for you, but I'd love to share my philosophy about any disagreement, because this is going to happen, right? You're going to work in an environment. So why are people disagreeing? We have different approaches. We have different goals. We have different motivations. We have different ways that we feel we might be able to develop the solution for something. And anytime I get in a disagreement with somebody, I think it's important. The first thing is to recognize that I'm disagreeing. And then the first thing that I do is I step back and I want to listen to their viewpoint, right? I want to understand why they're saying what they're saying and where they're coming from. And I need to make sure that my mind is open. So that's the first thing that I do. And the second thing that I do is ultimately I ask myself the question, if we're disagreeing about something and we're doing this at work, we obviously want to come up with the best solution for the company. So I have to keep in mind, and I have to remind myself, what is the ultimate goal that we're trying to accomplish? And then I look at what the person is saying and I try to think about, okay, is there a way where I'm coming from and where they're coming from can actually be combined to come up with an even better solution? What would be the best solution for us, regardless of whose it is? And hopefully it's something that we can combine to make it even better. That's teamwork. And that's the way that I look at it. So there was this time when, okay, I could say what I just said, role play it in less than 40 seconds, okay? And there was this time when, and then the story, right? After you just got done telling them, I think and not or I want to go with the best solution for the company, And then you go in with the detailed example. And the ultimate disagreement is when you and somebody else initially did not see eye to eye, and you came out with a third solution that was a blend of the two. That is the ultimate story. Why? Number one, you were open-minded. Number two, you compromised or put the effort in to work with that person to come up with a better solution. And three, it also shows them that you're a team player. Okay? All three. That is the ultimate answer. So go back to the philosophy, right? My philosophy is I recognize that we're disagreeing. So I want to make sure that I pause. I'm open-minded. I let them speak. I listen to their opinion. That's a skill, right? I listen to them. Wait, first, being open-minded, that's amazing. Listening, that's a skill. That's amazing. And then, okay, now I'm looking for a solution. I'm not emotional about it. I'm just thinking about what's best for the company. And off you go. Philosophy, here's what my steps were, right? And here's what the outcome was. That's the result. Now, hopefully you have a combo solution that you did. I'm guessing you work long enough, you were at a disagreement with somebody where you came up with a solution that was even better, okay? Now, you can't use that if they say, tell me about a time when you had to influence somebody, okay? But you can alter what I just gave you to talk about, okay, I recognize, you can still use the same answer up until the part where you go to the example. Then you have to say, and I recognized that my solution was the right one based on the goals after I had listened to the person, and here's how I articulated my viewpoint and ultimately came up with the outcome and influenced that person to change their mind. Same story, right? Or same structure, right? Philosophy, process or steps, and then what the outcome was. Okay? So that's that one. The other one that you guys loved was the leadership and management one. So this is, what's your management style? What's your leadership style? How would you define leadership? Let's cover those. Now, if we go back to my little thing about, right, philosophy, process, and outcome, if you think about, most of you that are going to get asked this question are going to be in a leadership capacity in a managerial role. You better think team first. Okay, so my management style is, or how do I manage people, is the first thing is I'm in charge of a team or I'm responsible for a unit. And so the first thing is I always have to make sure that whatever I'm doing in some way is moving the entire team forward, right? That the team is moving in unison and that the sum of the parts is greater, right, than the individuals. So that's the first thing that I focus on. So in order to do that, I make sure that my processes and protocols are in place and that they're there in order to enhance our ability to produce. But in order for us to be operating efficiently, I have to think team first. Request to hold up the cards a bit longer when you show them. You guys got the replays. You could slow them down. You support the individuals, right? So I think team first. But in working the team to its highest performance, I have to support the individuals, which means I have to get to know each one of them. Okay, I have to get to know each one of them. I have to understand their operating procedures, what their goals and aspirations are, how I can help facilitate that in the protocols of working well as a team, right? And the processes that we've set. But some people, they need a little pat on the back. Some people, they need a little kick in the butt, right? Everybody's a little different. And as a leader, you got to take the time to listen to your people, to get to know them, and then to adjust your operating style, not special treatment wise, just making sure that you are interacting with that person in the way that is going to ultimately raise performance, right? Leaders, if you want to go off the definition, they raise performance and they inspire confidence. So as somebody is going to do something, either they inspire confidence to do something that they otherwise wouldn't do, or to go at it with more vigor and more confidence. even if they were going to do it anyway. So ultimately, that's my management style, is making sure that the protocols are in place for the team, and then supporting the individuals, right, literally on an individual basis, based on their behaviors, their goals, and what they're interested in, and how they perform best, and getting them to work in unison. Because that's what I think leaders do. Leaders build more leaders. They don't build more followers, right? They raise the performance and they inspire confidence. So you can wrap all that up however you want. But philosophy, right? Process, and here's what I do.